We will be talking about the global bleaching event. This is when coral reefs turn white and as a result puts them at high risk of dying. We'll be focusing mainly on Australia's coral reef, but before we do that, let's take a look at how the other coral reefs around the world are doing. It started in 2014 during the Northern Hemisphere summer. Warm waters had caused corals in Guam and the Northern Mariana Islands to start bleaching. By the end of 2014, corals around Hawaii, Florida, and the Marshall Islands had started to bleach too. When summer came around in the Southern Hemisphere, bleaching spread to coral reefs in the South Pacific and Indian Ocean. And towards the end of 2015, corals throughout the Caribbean had bleached too. By now, El Niño was at its peak of heavy, warm rain, and combined with global warming, it kept sea temperatures high enough to keep the bleaching event into 2016, affecting corals in Asia, the west coast of Africa, and the Great Barrier Reef too. The worst bleaching that the Great Barrier Reef had ever seen. Bleaching continued into 2017 when the Great Barrier Reef was hit again. When researchers went to see the damage that was done to the Great Barrier Reef, they found out that the coral's death rate was more intense in the northern section of the reef, where bleaching had been the most severe. In the central section of the reef, 33% of the reefs bleached severely, but there was only around a 6% death rate, while the southern section of the reef was only 1% severely bleached. Researchers first documented global coral bleaching in 1998, a record warm year, and it happened again in 2010. But this third global bleaching event is by far the worst. The impact can potentially affect the coral reefs far greater than any in the past have done. The greenhouse gases have become more and more abundant as a result of high methane gases caused by cattle farms and the release of CO2 from factories.
The result of the pollution from the greenhouse gases has caused the healthy global reefs to start dying. But in order to better understand the process, we must first better understand what the coral reefs are. The coral reefs are made of thousands upon thousands of tiny organisms called polyps. The little moving bumps in the video are the polyps. These polyps are located on all the corals, and these corals are located on skeleton structures which were dead corals that have been building up for thousands of years. The shape of the many corals has created a home for nearly 25% of all oceanic species, which is quite surprising seeing as all the coral reefs combined make up only 1% of the ocean floor. The coral reefs do not only benefit ocean species, but they benefit humans as well, as they contribute billions of dollars in revenue through tourism, fishing, and protection from waves. You are probably wondering, how do coral reefs form? The answer isn't they magically appeared, but the process is quite magical. The coral reefs are created through polyps, which are located on the corals, and the algae that live within these polyps. As you can see in the video, their colors are primarily greenish brown, but there are exceptions. The algae are what scientists or your professor would call them zooxanthellae. The zooxanthellae need sunlight to produce energy, which is why coral reefs are located so close to the surface.
But with the recent increase in ocean temperature by a few degrees in the past years, the corals have started to release zooxanthellae as a result of the photosynthetic process being overworked and creating hydrogen peroxide, and this is when you are left with the white skeleton look as can be seen. You may be asking, are they dead? And no, they're not, but this is a major indicator that they could eventually die if the temperatures do not fall back down. For the most part, the corals usually return back to their former state in a couple of weeks. The next few images is a result when multiple corals are unable to return to their former state. They start to become fuzzy and eventually become an almost rust look. A way that fish help is by eating the algae and create new coral larvae. However, this process is not a quick solution, as this would take a minimum of 10 years for the coral to grow back. But with rising temperatures, it would be almost impossible for any corals to grow again, as they will follow suit with their predecessor's death.
Humans can help stop this from happening, as we can have more control over the overproduction of greenhouse gases, which would then slow down global warming, which would give the corals and the zooxanthellae the ability to adapt to warmer weather so they can flourish and be the once colorful and beautiful coral we all know.